So to begin with, audience writing, public audience writing is IA1. And this is probably the most unfamiliar task that you'll be undertaking in senior high school for English. So you're combining a few different types of assessment here. When you think about it, you are analyzing in this task. So you've still got that element of an analytical essay, but then you're also trying to prove a point. You're trying to argue some kind of claim that you're making. And as a result, it's also got elements of a persuasive piece of writing too. And because you can include little anecdotes, you can include different things with memes, with images, with puns and captions. That means that there are some potentially creative elements in this as well. So with all that in mind, it's something that is going to be quite unfamiliar to you, but we're going to break it all down and see how you can tackle it best. In terms of structure, it does replicate that typical kind of essay structure quite clearly. You've got your introduction where you're going to have some kind of hook, so it's a bit like a persuasive speech in that way, and a creative piece as well. Then you're going to introduce your texts, have a thesis statement, and a preview. So a preview could be that signposting element that we sometimes see in essay writing, where you're outlining the ideas that you're going to explore later on. So the main parts there are the thesis and the hook, and a preview is sort of an optional kind of step. It does depend on the texts that you're analyzing and the genre that you're writing for, the sort of platform that you're writing for. So with public audience writing, with this task, you may be writing a blog, it may be an opinion article or a feature article. It could be some kind of more casual version of an essay. So there's quite a number of different styles that this could be. And you may be given a scenario, a particular platform that you could be writing it for, or it could be more of a generic kind of thing that you're given, so something that's made up. But that sort of information that you'll be given is going to inform the way that you write your piece. But regardless of that, it will be for the public audience, which makes it different to your normal essay, and we'll get into that shortly. Okay, so after you've got your introduction, you've also got your body, and as always, you're going to have a topic sentence, you're going to have analysis, and that exposition as well. And then in your conclusion, you're going to recap, and you're going to have your final concluding statement, drawing on everything that you've analyzed. You're going to make that concluding remark based on all of that information. So the biggest mistake that students make when it comes to writing for the public audience, and that is writing too formally. So you need to think of your article as a conversation with someone. Think about the way that you speak with people, and try and replicate that when it comes to your piece. So you can use those different techniques like puns, contractions as well. Contractions is something that we tend to avoid when it comes to formal writing, but because this is more casual, you can use contractions, and you can use incomplete sentences, so sentence fragments. You still want to be, grammatically correct in the way that you use, in the way that you write, so making sense and things like that, but just using those incomplete sentences For example, excluding the subject. So, see you tomorrow instead of I'll see you tomorrow is an example of an incomplete sentence. And these are the sorts of strategies that you can use in public audience writing. And we've got an example here as well. You can pose a question. You're speaking to the audience. So while we might describe our Western culture today as enlightened and progressive, are we really better than the history that has always changed women to convention? Posing a question in a way that is quite conversational, but still effective in getting across a point. So you are using all the same muscles to find your argument. So approach analysis the way that you usually would. You would have had lots of experience with doing analysis throughout year 11 and hopefully before that as well. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to this. Look for literary techniques, film devices, all of those different aspects that you would usually analyze and go from there. In terms of tone, when you first start writing, you may need to get used to this new tone. So this informal kind of style. And a strategy that you could adopt is writing more formally to begin with in a way that's more comfortable for you, and then going back and tweaking your language so it's softer and more casual. And your writing needs to sound like you, the author you, would say it to another person in a conversation. So you can think of all those words that we tend to use in essay writing because it's a bit of a classic kind of word, like representation and thus, therefore, resultingly, things like that. So those are the sorts of words that are great for an essay when that's expected. But when it comes to the public audience, it's a different story. So try to make your tone reflective of your kind of style in a conversational sense. And analysis needs to be a key part of your essay all the way through, and that's a way that it's really similar to an essay. In the end, you are still endeavoring to argue a thesis, not just write in an entertaining way. So you've still got a purpose with this. It's still similar to an essay or a persuasive speech in that sense. It's simply just a different style of getting across that argument. So the idea of doing all of this may not be that appealing to you, but it's actually a really good way to make your so in terms of things like the memes and images and things like that, it may not appeal to you, but it's actually a really good way of making the essay casual and fun. And think about all of those platforms that you would usually use that have those multimodal kind of elements. So the public audience is used to that kind of style where you're going to have images. It's not just blocks of text. So including those sorts of things is a really good way of reflecting those expectations of the public audience, making it casual, and also just supporting your point. You can be showing snippets of a movie that you may be analyzing, or something like that. So you may be analyzing a particular shot that they've taken, a camera angle or something like that, and you can then illustrate that with an image from the movie. That can be really effective to illustrate your point and to just make it more engaging as well, break up your text. So it can also help you with the tone. Having those images can really support your piece in terms of getting that right kind of tone across. You don't just have to have memes. It's a whole bunch of different things. As I mentioned, screenshots from the film. You can also have book covers, artwork. You can create your own content as well. So if you want to use any kind of software to create something, then that can be an option as well. And that's where that idea of the creativity comes into this piece of assessment too. Okay, so at the end of each of your points, you need to connect your logic to a wider modern day issue. And it's likely that your essay is going to focus on a key idea communicated in the text. It could be ethical or political or literary, and you want to keep that connection to the modern day based on that and not a specific niche point in your individual essay. So focus, you'll be thinking about concepts, identities, times, and places in this piece of assessment, and it can be all sorts of things within that, things like gender and race and religion, those sorts of things. So make sure you're connecting it to the modern day. And an example of that, if you are talking about racism, you could talk about the Black Lives Matter movement or some kind of event that you can link to that shows your understanding and also helps the reader understand as well. Again, this idea of the public audience, you want it to be easy to understand for your reader. And if you were talking about gender, you could be talking about recent events in terms of women's marches or protests or things like that. And so link what you're writing to specific experiences of individuals, and aim for people who are alive today. Film analysis. This might be something that is more unfamiliar to you, and we don't have enough time to explore everything there is to know, of course, about film analysis. But mise-en-scene is about staging, and that's something that is really helpful for you to understand when it comes to analyzing films. So that's all about what is on the screen, everything that is included in what is on the screen. And other things you can consider, I mentioned earlier, camera angles and things like costuming as well. Those are the things that you can analyze to look out for different meanings. Now, an example of that, if you were to be analyzing gender, for example, maybe a female character is wearing all pink and has a pink bag, pink shoes, pink everything. Maybe that is something that you could analyze in terms of how they're representing gender by talking about stereotypes in terms of the choice with costuming.